Welcome to This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This episode 91. Today we have two special guests, the husband and wife duo. First, he is a leading expert on television and the entertainment industry. He's an author, journalist, and playwright. He has worked as a featured entertainment writer, beat reporter, and TV critic for a variety of publications, including the LA Times, The Hollywood Reporter, Daily Variety, and Deadline Hollywood. He's written several books, including the New York Times bestseller, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family. This is Jeopardy, celebrating America's favorite quiz show. And Betty White, 100 Remarkable Moments in an Extraordinary Life. And of course, he can be seen providing commentary throughout the Seinfeld box set, behind the scenes, inside looks. And she is a veteran actress of stage and screen. You know her from Grey's Anatomy, Ally McBeal, and Pretty Little Liars. And of course, as Elaine's friend Lisa in several Seinfeld episodes, please welcome Ray Richmond and Jill Holden. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us, Tony.
All right. This is a Seinfeld power couple.
Wait, we've actually never been introduced that way.
Right. There's a first for everything. So take us back. First off, how did you two meet and get together? And did Seinfeld have anything to do with it?
Oh my gosh. Let's pretend it did and come up with a great story, honey.
Actually, other than our mutual love of the show, as soon as I found out that she had been a guest on a few episodes, I totally went for it. So that was it was a lure, let's say. But no, for the most part, our story doesn't have a lot to do with Seinfeld, except for our mutual love of the show. And many nights I will catch Jill watching endless reruns of either the Golden Girls or Seinfeld, laying on the couch, vegging out. Those are her two go-to shows. The thing with Seinfeld, and this is way more than you guys want out of me as an introduction, is that the episode, it never gets old as a rerun. I mean, it still feels as fresh today as it did in the 90s.
Agreed.
Yeah, and, you mentioned Golden Girls, another, obviously you're a TV historian. It's another classic NBC show. So I'm curious, I know you were fond of the show early on, and I think I heard that's how you got asked to be a critic on the DVD. But tell us a little bit about, the early years of Seinfeld, what you saw in it that was different than most shows. And then tell us a little bit about the process, how you got on the DVD.
Well, I remember distinctly in the summer of '89, I was a TV critic at the Orange County Register, a newspaper out here on the West Coast. And, back then there was so little on summer TV. I mean, it was still summer rerun season, that the networks would broadcast their burnt off pilots. You would have the stuff that didn't make the fall schedule just because they needed to fill time. They would put in shows and, just one-offs. And the Seinfeld Chronicles was a one-off. And I just thought, when I watched it, I just thought, this is really funny. Why there's so much crap on their schedule? Why didn't this make their schedule? Then I wrote that, and it appeared in the Register. And then I remember getting a call many years, decades later, from Morgan Sackett, one of the producers of the show, who said, "We want you for the DVD, for the box set." And I'm like, "Why?" There were many critics bigger than me. I was, small potatoes by comparison to many of the others. And they're like, because we've sort of identified you as literally the first critic that said something positive about the show.
Oh, wow.
In America, I was the first one who actually ever praised Seinfeld. Who knew? And, so I was like, great. Because Seinfeld was, one of my top 5 sitcoms ever. That, and I'd have to say probably, Dick Van Dyke and Larry Sanders and The Simpsons. I mean, it's a small list,
right?
Short list that Seinfeld is near the top of. And, but anyway, so that's how I got onto the DVD. And, I still don't remember exactly what I wrote. I had to actually watch a little of the Seinfeld Chronicles today to even remember the pilot. but
signals, Jerry, signals, right?
You could see already, the melding of the characters and how well they were going to jive together. And that's what attracted me initially to the show is, oh my God, this is a great cast. And they really have great chemistry. I mean, it's that simple. The great comedies always have great, great casts that merge together beautifully. Dick Van Dyke being another major example, obviously Larry Sanders, without that cast, without the one star doesn't carry a great sitcom. You need a handful.
Right. And Jill, speaking of that cast and everything, when did you first? I know you mentioned you were in The Stranded. That was season 3. So how did that come about? Your first episode.
Junior Mint was before that, wasn't it? And that was the first one I did. I think Junior Mint's.
Oh, really?
2. Oh, I don't remember. I just had an audition. I went to Mark's office, and I knew him from other Mark Hirschfeld. I knew him from other jobs. I did a lot of sitcoms, and I auditioned. But there were 3 of us. It was Jill Talley and Lisa Mendy and me, and we always were there together.
Right.
So yeah, we had a good time, a good chemistry. We're still friends.
Very cool.
So tell us a little bit about that process, right? I mean, we have a TV critic, and then we had someone who's actually on the set. So this is a interesting dynamic. So tell us a little. Junior Mint was, I mean, geez, what an iconic show that was, right? Tell us a little bit about what you remember from the set, kind of dynamic between Larry and Jerry. Like, from what we've heard from so many guest stars is, it was kind of Larry's baby, right? And he kind of controlled everything from top to bottom. I'm just curious how it was on kind of all seasons that you played a part in, but Junior Mint specifically would be great.
I'm trying to remember, but I just know this is the memories I have. Michael Richards was always in the corner. He never spoke to anybody. He just practiced his falls and his bits. I mean, over and over and over, you hear crashing in the background. He worked those things out like to the, the nth degree. They weren't just improvised. He never spoke to anybody. He was just off doing his thing. Jason Alexander was the most charming, friendly, remembered us year to year because we only were on like once a year or twice a year. We didn't, people would forget who we are. But Jason was great. Remembered everything, was like a theater person and was wonderful to be with. Jerry was, I did have the scene with him in Junior Mints. And I remember I was about to go on. It's something about he's trying to remember somebody's name, and I live in an apartment building. Yes, right. That's right. And I'm in the apartment building, and he knows it's the same apartment building, so he rings all the bells. This is, I don't know if you've seen it. It's only in the box set. And he says, hello, it's Jerry, and people hang up on him, and I say, Jerry, oh my God, Jerry, you come back to me. And I run down the steps, and I hug him, and he's, he runs away because, of course, he doesn't really. It's not whatever it is. But I remember I was about to go on, and he's standing behind me, and he says, okay, we've changed everything. You're going to go on this way, then you're going to go down the thing and turn left instead of right, and then you're going to take 3 steps, and then you're going to say this line instead of this line. Okay, go. And it was when the audience was there and everything. I'm like, oh my shit, I can't believe it. But it was great, because they changed especially the joke lines constantly. There was a constant rewriting right on the set as we were doing it. And he wasn't really incredibly friendly, nice guy, but Larry David was delightful, kind, thoughtful. I found him really great.
Nothing like he appears on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
No, he's not.
Yeah, we've heard that. And he seems like a real loyal guy. That's a great story too about Jerry. Ray, Jill just touched on Jason Alexander, and I know from what I gathered from the DVDs, George is your favorite character. For us too. Maybe touch on as a, like you mentioned, there aren't that many shows that fit into that top tier, and it's usually the full cast. And that's true, it's the full cast, but there's got to be one character that kind of sticks out. For us, it's probably George. And I think, you mentioned this in the DVD, like at the time, there wasn't anything like him. Like he's supposed to be unlikable, but he's likable. Maybe you can kind of,
because he's so pathetic.
Yeah,
he's so pathetic. He's which is why I love the opposite episode, because it so defines everything he was trying to do in that show. literally doing the opposite of everything that he had ever done, would obviously make him a success with women, a success in life, able to be a social creature like he never could be before. There's just so many, when I think of Seinfeld, I just think, you think of moments with Elaine, you think of moments with Kramer, moments with Jerry, but it's the whole of the show with George. He just embodied everything. Almost every memorable scene involved him in some way. I mean, just thinking back to all of the great moments, he's in them. From It Shrinks to to the opposite to his. I still think back almost every week. I still think back on the idea that he left the job and then quit and just showed up on Monday as if nothing had ever happened.
Right.
One of the great.
What about the trifecta? That's my favorite.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
My favorite.
The pastrami sandwich, sex, and the ball game all at once. The trifecta was magnificent. And I too had a personal moment with Jason as a critic when I was working actually at the LA Daily News after I'd left the Orange County Register. I went on the set and thought I was going to get like 15 minutes with him for an interview, and he said, "No, let's go to lunch." And we went to the Daily Grill, a nice restaurant like 2 blocks from the studios, and he spent almost 2 hours with me.
Oh, wow.
And could not have been more down to earth and sweet and kind.
And
what year was that, Ray? I'm just curious.
Oh, I think that was 93.
All right, so season 5. Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jill. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Like you'd have lunch on the set, and the guests or the whatever we were would be in one room, and most of the stars would stay in their own room. We never saw them. Jason would come out every day. He would come out, hang out with the regular people, and have lunch with us. And he just had a whole different. I think because he's from the theater, and I've been watching him lately on these tributes to Stephen Sondheim, and he's just so magnificent on stage. He's really great.
Well, Jill, it's because he's from New Jersey.
Is it? Is it the New Jersey in him that makes him so kind?
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Well, that because he's definitely, he was raised right. He's got a real down to earth attitude, and
just like Tony Soprano, just that really kind New Jersey thing going on.
But
it's funny. He's another guy, another character who was villainous, but you rooted for him, similar to George in a weird, twisty way.
Yeah, that's true. But in terms of, I actually interviewed Jerry on the phone, and it could not have been a more different experience than what I had with Jason. And this will probably not help you recruit.
No, that's all right. We've been critical of Jerry in the past. We're fair.
Yeah.
We're fair.
Well, he was kind of a schmuck in our phone interview, where he was just completely full of himself, and I never realized that I was going to create history instead of just a show, and just was completely full of himself. And I just
it's
a little bit,
interesting.
humility goes a long way.
Right. It's interesting too, because you touched on this in the DVDs as well, and Jill, you were on the later season, English Patient. I think it was season 8 or season 9, and Ray, you touched on that when Larry left, you still were a huge fan of the show. Like, you didn't think much dropped off. We've been critical of those seasons here. We're fair. I mean, it's a different show. Whether it's good or bad, that could be debatable, but I don't think there's any question it's a different show. When Larry leaves, George's storylines become a little bit crazier and outlandish. The writing staff is younger. They're kind of writing what they think Seinfeld should be, not like the Melmans and the Larry Charleses, who are, really there, writing George as he was. But anyway, in that respect, you're actually a fan of, you're fair to Jerry. I mean, you did say that he ran the show well after Larry left, and, maybe you could touch on that.
I didn't think there was I know there was some drop off. I don't think there was a huge drop off. And well, except of course the final episode, but I'm sure you could devote entire years to the final episode, more than just a single podcast. I imagine you guys are not fans of the finale.
No, I didn't. I got a little hard talk for himself, but I didn't mind it. I mean, I think people are a little critical of it. I think some of that's unfair.
That
to be
was
honest
written
with you,
by Larry, of course.
I mean, it's hard to To me, a lot of people that watched, everyone watched the finale, right? But how many people watched every single episode of the show leading up to the finale? So they just tune in the finale. What is this? Not that great. I thought it was going to be better. It's like, well, hold on a second here. Like, it's one episode of the whole season, and they wrapped it up the way they had to wrap it up. I didn't think it was terrible. I mean, it wasn't the best episode, but it wasn't terrible.
Listen, for me, the true finale would have been the episode you just mentioned, the opposite. That would have been a way to go out literally on top, because in our opinion, the show declined a little bit after that. But that was
the end of season 7, right?
No,
the
5.
season 5.
Yeah,
Was it-
season
was it
5.
that-
Yeah.
Wow.
After, Larry Charles left after that, but,
But,
LD stayed around.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I watched it live, I agree, I was a little disappointed. But like now that I'm circling back watching it, I have a better sense of it and a better appreciation for it. Although, for the most part, every episode I watched live stayed true to what I thought what it did, except for when they killed off Susan. For some reason, that rubbed me the wrong way. Watching it like recently, it just, I don't know,
Very creepy.
They didn't need to do it.
Yeah, and then the Larry David thing, I get it, but yeah, just I don't know. That one rubbed.
You came to every live show? You came every
No,
Friday
we mean
night?
like live when it aired, back when it actually aired.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought you meant like
no, we were like watching it live. Like, we there are a lot of fans, and I'm completely surprised by how many. It seems like more fans there are that are rerun fans rather than, like you said,
They
Ray, like
weren't
you were
there
the
at the
first
beginning.
critics who were there at the beginning, as were we. Basically season 2 is when I really got into the show, and live, and it's interesting that on reruns, most of the fans like the later seasons. I don't know what that reason for that is, but we're finding, at least on social media and things like that, the bigger pops are the seasons 8 and 9 episodes. For us, it's really more of like 2 through 5. But
You know what you don't find?
Yeah.
You don't find a lot of minority people that belong to minority groups loving Seinfeld. In fact, I have never spoken to an African American or a Latino person who has not only not liked the show, but has never even watched it. Now I'm sure that's probably a huge generalization, but this may be one of the widest comedies in TV history in terms of audience and appreciation. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I could probably say the same thing about Cheers and a lot.
Friends might be even more.
I wouldn't
A
say
lot of
the
that era.
lightest.
Yeah.
I mean, they wrote what they knew. It was their world. I think, you could say, well, New York City is New York City, but it's their world. They're just writing about their world, and it's the world, they were in. The fans part of it, I'm not sure. That part I don't know enough about, but as far as the tone of the show goes, I think they were just writing what they knew, and their whole motto is funny's funny. But I get your point as far as the fans go. I'm not sure, how much that's crossed over.
Right, but I know also Brandon Tartikoff, the big honcho from NBC, famously thought that this was going to be a total flop and didn't really want it. Had to be talked out of getting rid of it, because he just thought way too New York, way too Jewish.
Right. And it's interesting. So, as a TV critic, in this show, I don't want to compare it to like Michael Jordan, but I feel like writers were never really critical of it. And again, going back when I watched live, I didn't like open up the New York Post, and I watched the show. I liked it. That was it. Nowadays, I actually read to see if it's a good review. Like back then, I didn't do that. But my sense is, from like trying to get old articles, like people weren't really critical of the show. I mean, early on, yes, but I'm saying when it gains,
it was a love fest among the critics.
Right.
But not the ratings, really.
Yeah, and rarely do the ratings and critical darlings dovetail. Usually critics support the underdogs and the ones that aren't doing as well. Usually the ones who have found the mass audience. Critics feel like, well, my job here is done, and they move on, or they turn against it just because they're supposed to. But yeah, Seinfeld is an exception that everybody stayed behind, except until, of course, the finale when critics jumped in and bared their teeth and were like, like, oh my God, just like they did, of course, with the Sopranos finale, and feel personally offended because they had backed it for so many years, and this is what you give us at the end. How dare you? Critics take things personally and think it's all about them. That's the thing with critics. And they also, another secret of critics, in case you didn't know, is they don't really care about the audience they're writing for. They write to impress other critics.
Really? Who were you ready to impress?
I like to think I was an exception to that, but for the most part, yes, they write. Look at my vocabulary. Look at my taste. Yes, they write to impress other critics.
Interesting. It was interesting too because the critics were there, but the ratings weren't, and also the
in the beginning.
The beginning, yeah, I'm talking the beginning. The awards weren't there yet, really either. I don't think they really, and the show really took off. More like after 5, which to us, again, we were more fans of the core of the show at the beginning, which was the George you're talking about. So it's funny you both mentioned 2 great Georges. The which one did you mention again, Ray? You mentioned the
about the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite, and then Jill mentioned the pastrami, the trifecta, right? Those are 2 completely different Georges in my mind as far as the show goes, right? One's this, he's eating pastrami and watching TV in bed. It's a little bit outlandish where, going into work after being fired. That's what it was. Like Larry, that really happened to Larry David, right? That's a true story.
Is that a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story. Yeah. It's an SNL. He quit SNL. I'm out of here. And then Kramer, the real Kramer, told him, hey, just go back the next day. And that never happened. And he did. And, so that's a real story.
For how long? How long did he go back? And did they rehire him?
I know the same thing happened. I think they said, "What are you doing here? Get the hell out of here," kind of thing. But
didn't they also both work for Fridays?
Yes,
and Larry David.
Yes, yeah. And so I guess the point is, we talked to a lot of different writers, and they all said that, especially Peter Melman would say, all they did was try and find real life things to write about for the show. It's all Larry and Jerry wanted, and then the pastrami thing probably didn't happen, or the Frogger episode didn't happen. Like these things got crazy, and so it became not rooted in reality. But again, the ratings were there. Like Jerry always says, went out on top, right? Like you said, he went out on top, created history. But was it the same show? No, but was it still good? I guess that's everyone's.
I remember in the beginning, maybe the second year, not the first truncated year when he was still doing all that stand-up, but the second year people would call each other. It was like the old days. Hey, did you see the episode last night? What'd you think of this? It was like the around the water cooler thing, even though it was the 90s. You're probably too young to remember, but we would talk about it like the next day. And when I got to be on it, it was like, oh my God, I'm on Seinfeld. This is the most amazing thing.
What a different era that was, though. I mean, because you look back,
everybody watched it,
and now the audience is so split in so many directions. There was no such. Cable was still new in the late 80s, early 90s, relatively new. Forget streaming. That was a pipe dream that no one could even imagine. But there was still, Fox was only a couple years old when that happened, when that came out. So it was like, it was such a different world.
Fox was only
and people would still, VCRs were happening, but it wasn't the same. People still weren't used to, there were no DVRs, of course, and people didn't record things. So it was still, NBC's Thursday night lineup, and it was all about, you have to stay home and be a slave to whenever they decide you have to watch. So it was, there were very, that was almost the last great ride, one of those, the end of an era that Seinfeld was on, where it was such appointment viewing and so much a kind of a shared national experience.
Yeah, I agree.
And critics like you helped fuel that, I imagine, right? It sounds like, again, different time, right? Now you go on Twitter, read an article, like every show gets ripped, no matter, even if it's great. And
everybody's a critic.
Right, everyone's a critic, exactly.
Seinfeld didn't get touched. It was treated with white gloves. I'm just curious, maybe this is more like what changed America, but what changed in America? Like from a critic's point of view, like what happened? Is it just the surge of the internet and social media, or was Seinfeld that perfect? Like at the time we thought it was perfect, but like rewatching, you can always poke holes. I wonder if you
what did the critics hate at that same time period? What was on? I forgot what's on then.
Well,
in the
there
early
was
90s.
Hunter?
A lot
Did
of
you guys see
family,
Hunter?
mostly family shows back then. It was Home Improvement.
See, the thing is,
it was all
there was
family
so
shows.
much crap.
Yeah,
there was so much crap that the networks were shoveling out there that critics felt like they really, especially in the early days before the ratings really took hold and carried it, they felt like, oh my God, we really have to support this because it's funny and it's great and it's great television and it's historic television. They could feel that by like season 3,
right.
that they really had to support it to make sure NBC didn't change its mind and cancel it because there was so much crap. So I think there was almost an unspoken, sort of law among critics that we don't trash the stuff that we feel like they're pushing out there to better the medium and to entertain the masses, because there was enough crap to practice your poison darts on. You didn't want to you didn't want to kick the stuff that was trying so hard to be great.
I'm looking up 1993 shows. You had NYPD Blue, you had The X-Files, but you also had Diagnosis Murder, which I was on. Walker.
Texas Ranger, yeah.
Yeah, Walker, Texas Ranger. Dr. Finley was big. There weren't a lot of great shows.
Well, Seinfeld was just different. That was the thing. If you were watching a lot of TV like I was at the time, it was just different. It just struck you as different. Like you said, you're watching like this is not a normal sitcom.
Well, it completely had different beats than any other.
Everything was different. There was no formula. Like every other sitcom, you could figure out the formula. Like, okay, he does the wrong thing. The dad's the bumbling idiot, and the kids come in, and then they get fixed at the end. And every set, but this was like, what's going on here?
There was a formula. You put the seeds down. You think the disparate plot lines are not going to ever come together, and then they get more crazy and they come together.
Right, but when you're watching it live, that developed in front of your eyes. Like episodes like The Statue and The Busboy. I think The Busboy is the first one that Larry David remembers as the guys in the hallway meet, and he's like, "Oh, we should do this more often." So, looking back, yes, that became sort of the formula, but it was organic. It wasn't like oh, I figured it out. It was like
and you see that bit smaller or maybe larger on Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they plant these little bombs at the beginning or in the middle of the show, and they explode at the end. And that he really tried that strategy out on Seinfeld.
Yeah,
for sure.
Good point.
Beginning.
Now, Jill, more importantly, listen, we've heard great things. This is a perfect show. Critics loved it. Give us a little something on the set that a common person wouldn't know. A little story, a little funny story that happened.
I remember also not on the set, but you ran into Larry David in the restaurant. He offered to have you sit down with him, right?
Yeah. This sounds it's another one of those like everything was great though. They want something,
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll take great.
Great's great. We love it.
I mean, I was at Silver Spoon, that restaurant in West Hollywood. It's no longer there.
But these guys aren't LA.
Oh, you're not in LA? Where are you?
No, we're in New York, New Jersey.
Oh, sorry. There's a restaurant that was really popular.
I've heard of it.
I went to it, and Larry was, and this was years after I'd been on the show. I mean, it was like 5-6 years later, and he was sitting having breakfast, and I was really nervous about going up to him. I thought he's not going to know who I am, and and I went up. I said, "You probably don't remember me, but," and he said, "Chill, don't be ridiculous. Have a seat. Have some breakfast." And we had breakfast together, and he was just lovely, and I was like sweating bullets. Like, how dare I go and talk to the, So it was really. I mean, it was very nice.
There aren't that many people at his level that are that gracious.
That would do that, right? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard so many great things.
I thought this was you were going to say, "Oh, I got a guy for you," and this is how you two got together.
Let's make that it.
We could just rewind and do that.
By the time we met, we haven't been married that long. It was long over. I mean, we met in 2006, right?
Yeah.
So
we're old, but as a couple, we're relatively new.
Yeah.
No one could put up with us or stomach us before. It's only each other that we found companionship.
There was a certain rolling of the eyes with Michael Richards, because you'd hear crashes, things would break. The prop people were, oh my God, he destroyed that. He was just banging around all the time.
Well, it's funny, like we touched on this, like, the Emmy recognition, all that stuff. Like, Michael Richards won 3 of them.
Oh, he was brilliant.
Jason never won that.
Jason never won.
Yeah,
that,
I'm
which is a
curious when
crime.
you sat down with him during that lunch. Like, I don't know if that ever came up, but like, if you can shed some light on kind of what he was all about as a
You
person.
know, from what I gathered I remember from our interview and just from other interviews since then, he didn't care. I mean, he was honored to be. It sounds Pollyanna, but he was honored to be nominated.
You know what I think?
And he really didn't care about the winning or the losing. He just felt like he had hit the jackpot being on the show.
And he's a real actor. You know, like Jerry's wonderful and the show's great. He's not an actor.
Right.
There's that blankness in his face. I mean, he's not really playing the moments as a trained actor would play. He's a step removed, and he breaks, and he isn't paying attention to you when you're talking to him. He's not to criticize him, he's a genius, but he's not. And Michael Richards is all about doing, you know, crazy things,
physical comedy,
physical comedy brilliantly. But Julia and Jason, they were like acting. I mean, they were in the moment, and it was a different feeling.
But I interrupted about a great story from the set.
Me? I had a great story from the set?
Yeah, no, they were asking.
Oh.
Yeah, you just mentioned Julie. Actually, you did. You know, she was your friend on the show. I mean, I'm assuming you had most interaction with her than the other actors. You know, we're getting the sense from talking to other guest stars that she also was similar to Jason in that, you know, giving and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if you have anything to share there specifically.
I didn't. You know, I knew her from Chicago. I knew her from Northwestern. I taught at Northwestern.
Oh wow!
And she's a little younger than I am. I wasn't her teacher, God knows, but I taught at Northwestern, and she was on Saturday Night Live.
Youngest member, or one of the youngest members, right?
She was like 9 or something.
For like just one season?
Yeah, she didn't have a good time.
No.
It was the year she was on Saturday Night Live, and I was teaching a summer program at Northwestern, and she came back to talk to students about being an actor and stuff. And I remember she came to my class, and this was we're in the university, and her main point was, you don't need college. If you guys really want to be actors, you should drop out now and go to New York. And of course, the other people at Northwestern were like, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. She's at the college saying that.
It was not. She said, well, you know, but I remember that. And she, you know, I didn't really talk to her. She liked to be alone. She liked to focus on what she was doing. She wasn't like Jason. She was
an artist.
An artist, you know. Yeah, and I knew her. So
that's a great story.
Yeah, that is great.
And Jill, you were, I mean, I feel like you were kind of there from the beginning, right? The Stranded episode, Michael Chiklis, all the way to.
I can't find it. Is it called Stranded?
What's Stranded? That's the one when they're in Long Island.
That's Stranded? I don't see it.
No.
I'm looking on the list.
I'm curious from your point of view. So that was early on, even Junior Mint. Like, did anything?
Here it is. Oh, there. I'm sorry.
It is the Stranded.
Yeah, good. Sorry. Go ahead.
Did, like, your point of view, did anything change? Like, was it the same, like, mentality, same focus, or?
I'm an actor. I don't look at the whole picture. All I know is I felt better. By the third time, I thought, oh, like I'm on the show. I can't say that I have any idea. I would like to make it up. It was a little, I think the beginning was a little more tense.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what they weren't sure yet. And there was, I think Junior Mint, actually, now that you say that, there were more changes on Junior Mint. Maybe it was a show they had a hard time writing, but lots of changes. And then they ended up, you know, cutting my scene. So, but the other ones, it was much more, you got your script, you went and you did it. And, you know, there weren't a lot of Sturm und Drang. I think there was less, you know what? I'm just thinking about that right now. I think it was more tense in the beginning, more experimental, more think of a funnier line. You know how writers come in and they're always running in, their hair is crazy. Here, you got 7 more lines. I got 6
right.
To say. And they didn't do that so much in the later ones.
Right. And you were there when Larry David obviously was on set for those early ones versus the last 2 years he wasn't. So yeah, there probably was a kind of big shift in dynamic there.
Well, for one of the episodes I did, it wasn't in front of an audience. We shot on the lot, like on location, not the lot, but it was on location, you know, on one of those streets and on the lot.
Oh, the English
patient. Yeah, it's probably the
English patient. At CBS Radford?
Yes, I think it was the English patient. It was we didn't do it in front of an audience. I loved doing it in front of an audience. people were crazy in the audience. They
Can
were like
imagine.
fans, maniacal fans. And when the actors would walk out, they'd go crazy. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, and I think while you were doing the show, if I may extrapolate, it seemed like you probably thought, oh, this is a good job, but you didn't realize it was going to be such a calling card for decades to come. Where you know, it's such a conversation starter and icebreaker at parties that she was on Seinfeld.
Right.
That's true. Even though I've been in lots of other things in much bigger parts, it does seem to be the thing that makes me like, oh,
It's
you are
timeless.
an actor.
It's a timeless and iconic show. What are you guys watching now? If we looked at your DVR, well, you know, you guys are definitely TV fans. We can tell. Anything that you're watching now that you can kind of see as going to be groundbreaking in a way that Seinfeld's looked at as groundbreaking, you know, 20 years, 30 years later? Anything on right now that you think is going to last the test of time?
Go ahead.
No, I don't know about that, but
we're obsessed with old stuff.
We're kind of obsessed with Shtizzle. No, Shtizzle. We like obsessed on Shtizzle.
Have you ever heard of Shtizzle?
No.
It's an Israeli show that takes place in Meir Sharim, which is where the Hasids live. It's about the life of this Hasidic family.
Netflix.
Netflix. 3 seasons so far. It's so great. Don't you think?
Yes,
we're obsessed.
It's magnificent. No, what we're really obsessed with is of course the Beatles Get Back show.
Oh, I loved it. We were just talking about it earlier.
Did you watch the whole thing?
Yeah, I did. It's long, but it's really good. I loved it.
Oh my God! You know what? It may be the greatest thing I've ever seen about the creative process.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Just watching them writing these songs live in front of your eyes is just insane. Like,
yeah. Oh my God! You see him. You know, he's getting the beat for the song "Get Back," and you know, and George and John are kind of yawning and sitting back.
Yeah,
it's like history is being made, and they don't even know it.
I love that. I was joking before. It's like you see Ringo just hanging out the whole time, where they're just punching out all these, and then he comes to an octopus's garden, and George helps him out with it. That was really cool.
We haven't seen part 3.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
We're doing it tonight.
But all George all Ringo wants to do is keep the band together.
Yeah, just hanging out. He just wants to keep this ride going.
Arguing.
Yeah, exactly.
Continue for a while.
Yeah. At one point, Paul's like, maybe we just break up at the end. You see Ringo's face like, what?
Well, Ray, I guess here's the question: who held on longer, the Beatles or Seinfeld? Who went out on top?
Do you think the actors on Seinfeld wanted to leave?
Wasn't it Jerry's idea to
end
the show down?
Yes, but I mean, Larry was already gone.
They would have milked it for sure another year if they could, but
they were getting 1 million. Weren't they all getting 1 million an episode by then?
600, give or take. He was getting 1 million, yeah.
Oh, I get them mixed up with the Friends group,
right?
Yeah, no, the Beatles went out on top, and Seinfeld relatively on top. Yeah, I mean, these are you just want a way to go out. Period. I mean, so very few shows in TV history get an opportunity to complete their run and go out with something, you know, resembling a good positive conclusion.
Yeah, and I think at its core, Larry left for 2 years. Him coming back, kind of whether you liked it or not, they went out their way because he was a part of it. So I mean,
right.
At the end of the day, that's all you can ask for.
There's a part where Julia is calling her friend in the final episode, and the friend she's calling on the phone is my character. So I feel like I was in the finale.
Oh, that's right, Lisa. Your father was in the hospital, right?
That's right.
That I love that episode. I mean, this is why you mentioned earlier, Ray, about it being kind of the end of an era. It was also the end of an era in encapsulating almost like a time capsule, because you're talking about the cell phone walk and talk in the final episode. That kind of ended an entire generation of this. We're
it's
new.
True.
And I talk about this all the time, and people that listen to the podcast know I wrote a paper on it in library science because I was into archiving. Yeah, because I was into like archives and sort of like dealing with. I almost look at the show as an archive within itself. Like the way my generation would watch like Leave It to Beaver or I Love Lucy and be like, what is going on here? This is odd, That's how the new generation is watching Seinfeld now, like, talking, every episode's about, payphones and answering machines and things they don't know about. In the last episode,
Oh, I know.
they introduced a cell phone, and it's like that's it. That's where it ends. The cell phone walk and talk.
Speaking of all, can I plug my book?
Oh yeah, the Betty White. Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's coming out a week from today, December 7th, and 100 remarkable moments in an extraordinary life. It's a coffee table book all about her career from beginning, from birth to now. You know, she's really maybe the only star in entertainment history whose best time was her 90s.
Most
Wow.
prolific.
It's interesting.
And
Yeah,
she was
right.
in the very first television telecast.
Yeah, 1939. Her face was the first face that was ever on a television screen when they did an experimental TV transmission from an auto dealership building in downtown Los Angeles. Packard dealership. That's how long ago it was. And they got the picture and the sound all the way from the 6th floor down to the 1st. And it was successful. And 2 months later, television debuted at the New York World's Fair.
Unbelievable. Well, Ray, did Kramer inspire you to make a coffee table book, or?
Yes.
Does it turn into a coffee table?
Book. The coffee table book shaped as a coffee table. Didn't he plug that on the Merv Griffin show?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm on Regents and Kathy Lee. But no, I mean,
right.
that book, the research involved in that must have been intense. I mean,
a lot. I mean, it's
it's
unauthorized. It didn't really involve her. She's not really in good enough shape at the moment to participate. But she is a mere 7 weeks from her 100th birthday. So we got to cut her a little slack. But yes, a lot of research. You know, the thing is with the internet, as we know, you have basically all of the libraries of the universe on your tabletop right there at your fingertips.
But didn't you get the best stuff interviewing real people?
I did. I also interviewed, her best friend and a couple people that have already since passed on, Ed Asner and Gavin MacLeod.
They don't know who those are.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Well, listen,
I know.
Definitely looking forward to that. I mean, geez.
It's a great Christmas present, a great holiday present.
It actually is. It's actually really good. It's
Yeah,
$35, but unless you're really a cheap son of a bitch, 35 isn't that much for you.
Damn the cost.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this is great. I mean, this is the Seinfeld power couple, ladies and gentlemen. That we can't.
We're gonna hold on tight to that.
You know, it's
moniker.
weird. I remember when I would watch the show, and I would be like Jerry's generation and look at his parents like, oh, they're up in Florida having their great. Now I'm like his parents' age, and I think, oh, I understand how they felt in Boca Raton. I know why they went. It's to have a whole generation change. It's kind of crazy.
It's unbelievable,
Yeah,
and it's still all to your point. You can watch it now, and you still feel relevant. So I think that's the importance of a great show.
It just holds up incredibly well. So I mean, you guys could do this podcast forever, and it will, because now your podcast will hold up forever.
I got to do an episode with Lloyd Bridges. I remember thinking that was so great because I used to watch him as a little girl. What was that?
Sea Hunt.
And there was Lloyd Bridges. Oh my God.
Yeah, the English patient. That was Mandelbaum.
Yeah, listen,
So-
from Lloyd Bridges to Lloyd Braun, we cover it all here on Seinfeld. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Well, guys, this has been a treat. Best of luck with the Betty White book, Ray, and Jill.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Chris. Thanks, Tony. You are like adorable.
You guys are really, really charming.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. This was
Thank you.
Enjoy your night. Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking us to be on. It was way fun.
Of course.
Of
Awesome.
course. Cheers.
Good luck.
All right. Thanks.